It didn't fire. It just appeared, and 20 Imperial dreadnoughts vanished. No one spoke in the command cell of the Wastelander Ark Sable Dawn. The lights flickered over rusted bulkheads and hollow consoles. Most of the crew were gone, buried under layers of steel or turned to ash. Long ago, only 5 remained aboard, drifting in a graveyard of shattered moons and ancient debris where even pirates feared to. Rome.id or IS Harlan stood over the table, his synthetic right arm twitching as it interfaced with a terminal designed 3 centuries ago. He was once a commander in the Terran Resistance, before Earth fell and the Resistance burned. Now he was something less, or maybe something more. Behind him, Alara Ken adjusted the gravity stabilizers, her gaunt frame swaying with each surge. She had grown up on this ship, under the weight of stories told in whispers, how humanity once ruled colonies across 1,000 worlds. Now they were just stories, half-lost myths in the cold of space. Sir, she said quietly, we're receiving a signal. It's ancient. Terran encryption, level Omega. Idris froze. Omega-level signals were used only once in history when Earth activated its final contingency, before the Empire's final bombardment. He walked to her console. Static bled across the screen, then resolved into a pulsing symbol, the sigil of old Earth. The signal wasn't just a distress call. It was a summons, a beacon from a place that shouldn't exist anymore. Coordinates? Idris asked. Outer grave expanse, beyond the edge of map space. He looked through the cracked viewport. Out there, past the bones of forgotten wars and the black hearts of collapsed suns, something had awakened. He turned to the others. We go. Full burn. I want Sable Dawn running hotter than hell itself. But that's suicide, Alara said. If the Empire tracks us, we're already ghosts. Let's make them remember what haunts the dark. As the ship ignited its ancient engines, the stars outside seemed to stretch and tremble, and somewhere, far beyond the galactic rim, something stirred, watching. Asterisk, the Empire doesn't just kill you, it erases the idea that you ever existed. The Sable Dawn screamed through void space, her engines howling like ancient ghosts. The blackness around her shimmered, reality rippling in ways the Empire swore were impossible. Idris Harlan gripped the command rail as the ship trembled beneath his boots. He hadn't felt this in years, the thrum of purpose. But that feeling curdled fast, because as they hurtled toward the signal's coordinates, memories clawed their way back. The last time he felt this alive was the day Earth died. The Empire's cleansing fleets had come not as soldiers, but as executioners. They didn't wage war. They delivered declarations of erasure. Billions vaporized in minutes. Cities turned to light and ash. His wife, his child. He still heard their last scream every time the silence grew too deep. Beside him, Alara stared at the growing anomaly on the scope, a rippling distortion in space. It wasn't natural. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Something was there. Approach vector locked, she murmured. Whatever it is, it's massive. But there's no visible structure. The others leaned in. Rourke, the old pilot with half a face of fused synthbone. Mev, the mute engineer with eyes full of static. And Callan, just a kid, barely 17, who believed in the myths more than any of them. Idris narrowed his eyes. Drop us to Sublight. I want to see it. With a jolt, the Sable Dawn slipped back into real space. For a breathless moment, silence. Then a shimmer, a shape, a silhouette so impossibly vast it distorted the stars behind it. It wasn't cloaked. It was forgotten by the universe itself. Their scanners screamed and died trying to process it. A ship, a warship, human design, but like nothing they'd ever seen. Long, black, and sleek, it hung in space like a blade pointed at the heart of the galaxy. No lights, no activity, but the symbol on its hull was clear, the seal of Terra. No record of that class in any historical database, Alara whispered. Not even Project Leviathan reached this scale. Rourke let out a low whistle. Either that thing was built in secret, or it wasn't built by us at all. Before Idris could respond, the console flared red, an alert, proximity ping. Then 10, then 30. Contact, Maev signed with rapid fingers. Imperial ships, closing fast. Callan's voice cracked. How did they find us so fast? Idris's voice turned to ice. Because they never stopped watching, and now, they had come. Outside, the stars were swallowed by the shimmering black of Imperial interdictors. Arrowhead ships of war, trailing clouds of sensor-absorbing nanodust. Among them, a behemoth descended, a Ravager-class dreadnought, marked with the red insignia of the High Caste. It was not a patrol. It was an execution squad. Alara spun to the console. They're hailing us. Put it through, Idris said. The screen flared. A pale, eyeless creature appeared. Face smooth and bone-plated, dressed in black ceremonial armor. This is Preceptor Haltoon of the Eternal Empire. You have trespassed in a forbidden memory space. Submit for dissolution. Idris stared at him. What is that ship behind us? Haltoon tilted his head. There is no ship behind you. He meant it. Genuinely. His scanners must have failed. They couldn't see it. You don't see it, do you? Idris whispered. You still fear it. Haltoon's mouth twisted. Humanity was extinguished for crimes against harmony. You are remnants, noise, dust. Prepare for elimination. The screen cut. Then, silence. Outside. The Dreadnought's weapons powered up, but Sable Dawn didn't move. Sir, Alara's voice was tight. We can't outrun them. What now? Idris turned toward the black silhouette still hovering above the stars. The Terran ship. The ghost. I don't think we have to run. He walked to the comms panel. His voice dropped to a whisper, reverent, almost afraid. If you can hear me, we remember. We survived. We bled. We never stopped believing. His voice trembled. If you're truly ours, wake up. For a long moment, nothing. Then, the stars dimmed. The voice shook, and the forgotten warship began to move. Its hull rippled with shifting light. Energy bled from invisible seams. With no visible engines, no signature, and no crew, it began to turn. The Imperial dreadnoughts reacted instantly, weapons locked, missiles launched. But before the first warhead reached its target, the Terran ship pulsed. A single, silent wave, and everything vanished. Not exploded, not vaporized, gone. 24 Imperial ships, erased like chalk from stone. The Ravager dreadnought spun off course, its structure collapsing. Under its own gravity, Alara's mouth fell open. What is that thing? Idris whispered. Not a ship. Then, the comms flared again. This time, a voice, deep, old, human, acknowledged. Humanity detected. Directive 7 reactivated. Awaiting orders. Commander. Idris's breath caught. The stars had remembered, and so had the ghosts. It didn't fire a weapon. It became one. Idris Harlan stared at the console, every nerve in his body on fire. The voice, impossibly human, achingly familiar, echoed through the sable dawn like a hymn from the forgotten past. Directive 7 reactivated. Awaiting orders. Commander. He turned slowly to face the crew. No one spoke. Alara looked like she was about to collapse. Rourke, for the first time in years, wasn't smirking. Callan was shaking. Even Maev, usually unreadable, gripped the bulkhead with trembling fingers. They had just witnessed the impossible. A Terran warship, long-thought myth, had annihilated. A fleet without lifting a finger. It knew them. It recognized them, and it was waiting. Open a line. Idris said, barely above a whisper. Alara nodded, hands moving with mechanical precision. The link reconnected, but this time, no static, no delay. Identify, Idris said. What are you? The voice responded, calm, deep, and somehow warm. I am Etnam, final bastion of the Terran sovereignty, Arc-class battle mind. Command protocol fused with Earth Core command structure. Created under Project Obsidian, reactivated under Directive 7, species continuity. Obsidian, Idris whispered. That was never declassified. It was a rumor, not a rumor. Alara cut in. I read about it in the deep logs. Obsidian wasn't a shipyard. It was a seed, a ghost contingency. They didn't want the Empire to find it, so they buried it in quantum-folded space and programmed it to wake up only if. Idris paused, swallowing hard. Only if humanity was at its final breath. The battle mind's voice came again. You carry Terran genetic markers. You survived. Orders. The word shook him. For decades, he had fought with no hope of victory, just survival, escape. More data proved they hadn't all been broken. Now, the ghosts of the past were giving him the keys to a weapon the galaxy had never seen. Idris glanced at his crew. We can't win a war with 5 people. Rourke leaned against the console. We don't need 5,000. We need a signal. Alara nodded slowly. A spark. Something the other survivors can't see. Something that tells them we're not alone. Something the Empire can't bury. Callan added. Idris turned back to the terminal. Etnam, status of offensive systems, fully operational. Core weapon systems primed. However, strategic deployment not advised without network-wide reinforcement. Recommend reactivation of Terran relic caches across sector. Mev signed frantically. Alara translated. She says if those caches still exist, we can trigger a cascade. One flare, and they might all wake up. Idris nodded. What's the nearest one? The ship responded instantly. Relay Echo 9. Hidden beneath the ruins of Kepler Outpost. 3.1 light years. That name pulled at him. Kepler. One of the last strongholds before it fell, where the resistance had made its last desperate stand. He clenched his fist. Set course. Full burn. Alara hesitated. If we do this, the Empire will notice. They already have. He replied. Let them watch. Hours later, the Sable Dawn slipped into orbit over Kepler's grave. The planet was dead. Atmosphere scorched. Mountains shattered. Oceans boiled dry. Black Imperial scars ran across the surface, still radiating hatred. But beneath the ash, buried in the crust, was something older. Scanning, Etnum intoned. Subsurface architecture intact. Lock and beacon frequency. Begin transmission. Energy. Searched into the planet's crust. For a moment, nothing. Then, the ground moved. A tremor rippled across the surface. Cracked earth fell away, revealing steel. The relic was still there. A transmission tower, tall as a city, rising from beneath the bones of the planet. Its ancient spires glowed with blue. Light, flickering to life after centuries of sleep. Alara gasped. It's working. Signals being sent. Galactic pulse frequency. Type and Terran code. Idris stepped forward. Voice steady. Broadcast the message. They had written it hours ago. Short, undeniable, and sharp as a blade. We are not extinct. We are not alone. The Terran flame has reignited. Join us. Burn the silence. The pulse fired across the stars, and like a drop of fire in oil, the galaxy shifted. On a shattered moon orbiting Nerelia X, a buried Terran bunker lit up for the first time in 600 years. On a hidden colony in the depths of the Kuros Mall, a farmer stared at the sky as his crops froze, and his terminal flickered with the Terran SIGIL dot in a slave mine beneath the Empire's core worlds. A worker dropped his tool, eyes wide as a whisper passed through the walls. They're back. Resistance cells long thought lost reconnected. Hidden AI knows. Reawakened. And across hundreds of war-torn systems, humans, broken, scattered, afraid, looked up with something they hadn't felt in generations. Hope back aboard the Sable Dawn. The crew watched it all unfold. Callan wiped his eyes. They're coming. All of them. Idris allowed himself the smallest smile. They will need more room. He turned to Etnum. Prepare for fleet integration. Open the hangars. Upload the resistance codex to every activated node. Acknowledged. Operation. Fireseed initialized. The spark had caught and now the stars would burn with it. The Empire realized late. Humans don't die quietly. The stars turned red. Not metaphorically, literally, across multiple sectors. Automated Imperial observatories recorded a shift in long-range stellar traffic. Systems once dark, lit up with strange, encrypted signals. Silence was cracking. And at the center of it all, one impossible transmission. A human voice, echoing through the void like a war hymn. We are not extinct. We are not alone. The Terran flame has reignited. Join us. Burn the silence. The Empress of the Galactic Empire, High Sovereign Exravale, stood in her throne core aboard the Celestial Verdict. Her biofused mind was connected to 1 million data streams for the first time in centuries. They did not bring order. They brought noise. Where is the origin point? She demanded, her voice ringing like a blade drawn across stone. Her adjutants, spindly, glass-skinned beings bred to obey, tremble. The signal originated from the grave expanse. Empress, a Terran relic awakened. It calls to others. Her obsidian eyes narrowed. I order that sector sterilized. How did anything remain? Unknown. But the anomaly, one dared to add, matches the energy readings of the Etnum. The warship once labeled the impossible. That name silenced the chamber. Even now, the Empire didn't acknowledge the Etnum publicly. To speak it was to whisper of fire in a hall of dry leaves. The Empress turned, robes flowing like living shadows. Dispatch the Obsidian Ascendancy. I want that ship found. Burn the stars if you must. Let the galaxy know. Extinction is a promise, not a threat. Far below, in orbit around Kepler's corpse, the Sable Dawn was no longer alone. Dozens of Ships now surrounded the blackened planet, Terran vessels, long hidden or buried, rising from the ashes of defeat. Some were ancient, patched together with scrap and hope. Others were sleek, experimental prototypes that had survived the fall by design, waiting for this exact signal. And at the center of them all, Etnam, towering, silent, awake, Idris. Harlan stood on the command deck of the newly restored Terran Fleet Nexus. It was a mobile relay platform, rebuilt in orbit over Kepler in mere hours by Etnam's nanoforge swarms. Humanity had once built for war on scales the galaxy had forgotten. Now they remembered. Status of the outer relay nodes, he asked, voice clipped, military.ela R.A. Ken, now operating as tactical coordinator, flicked her fingers across the command display. 3 to 7 nodes reactivated. Signals confirmed from former resistance cells in the Perseus line, Orion Shard and Vaka Cradle, and she hesitated. IDRIS turn. What? She swallowed. Earth. There's movement. He froze. That's not possible. She expanded the projection. It's faint. Deep underground. Something is stirring beneath the crust. Not a transmission, a frequency shift. It's alive. Idris felt his heart stop. He had seen Earth burn, watched the clouds ignite, watched the oceans boil. But now give me coordinates, he whispered. But before Alara could respond, alarms. Shriek. Mayev slammed a hand against the console. The holomap exploded into crimson. Contact. Rourke growled. Big. Empire's coming. They didn't just come. They arrived like judgment. Over 200 Imperial warships emerged from fold space, led by the Obsidian Ascendancy, an apocalyptic supercarrier the size of a small moon, its hull etched with black runes that pulsed. With the blood of sacrificed stars, had only moved for times in recorded history. Every time a civilization vanished, Alara stared at the display. They're not coming to fight. Callan's voice shook. They're coming to erase. Idris moved with practiced calm. Raise shields across the fleet. Initiate Etnam integration protocols. Every ship links to the battle mind. We stand as one. The ships responded instantly. Data streams, weapon locks, and energy transfers surged through the reawakening Terran fleet. And yet, they were still outnumbered 10 to 1, still weaker in firepower, still outgunned by the Ascendancy's ancient core. But humanity had never fought fair. The battle began without ceremony. The Empire opened with its standard doctrine. Saturation. Hundreds of fusion-tipped projectiles and quantum warp torpedoes blanketed the void, enough to obliterate a small planet. The sky turned white. But as the payload struck the Terran fleet, something unprecedented happened. The warheads froze in place. Mid-space. Their velocity halted. Their trajectory held in stasis. Then reversed. The weapons flew back at impossible angles, at impossible speeds, smashing into the Imperial front line, destroying dozens of ships before the first scream even echoed. Etnam's core weapon, gravitic redefinition field. Alara breathed. It rewrites space itself. Idris was already barking commands. Push forward. No hesitation. We take the fight to them. Terran vessels surged, their unity perfect. The Empire's fleets, so used to domination, hesitated. They'd never faced human rage armed with hope. But then, the Ascendancy fired. It didn't launch weapons. It screamed. A wave of energy tore through space like a god's roar, ripping holes, shattering shields, frying circuits with a psychic shockwave. Half the Terran fleet staggered. They're using Starbound tech, Rourke shouted. Designed to break will before it breaks steel. Ships spiral. Screams echoed through comms. But the humans didn't break. Maiev, her body shaking, forced the Sable Dawn back online with bleeding hands. Callan, barely conscious, launched relay boosters mid-flare to maintain fleet coherence, and Idris, bloody, burned, stood tall on the Nexus deck. He looked to Etnam. Override. Awaiting command. Begin Operation Revenant. Confirmed. The Terran fleet shuddered, then split. A dozen ghost ships, hollow wrecks rigged with antimatter cores, launched from Etnam's side and dove straight into the Ascendancy's maw. The Empire thought they were fleeing. They weren't. They were baiting. As the enemy pursued the husks, the core Terran fleet vanished into fold space. Destination Earth. The final card. The birthplace of ghosts. The heart of humanity's fury. The Empire scorched Earth to kill our past. They never dreamed we'd build our future beneath it. Earth wasn't dead, not completely died as the fleet exited fold space and dropped into high orbit. The sable dawn and her Terran sisters beheld, a planet blanketed in scars. The continents were blackened craters. Clouds, once vibrant, drifted like ash. No lights, no cities. The oceans were still glass-like from heat. It was a corpse. But under the crust, something moved. Etnum's voice rang out across the bridge of the Nexus. Subsurface anomaly confirmed. Coordinates matched Project Threnody. Idris Harlan gripped the railing, eyes wide. Threnody wasn't a myth. Alara stared in disbelief. That was a madman's theory. A planetary consciousness seed. Callan blinked. You mean Earth knew it might die? Idris said nothing. He watched as the scanners displayed a massive geometric pattern deep within the crust. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat, synchronized to the Terran signal that had awakened Etnum days ago. Signal interface initializing. Mav signed from the engineering deck. Her face was pale, lips trembling, and then the planet spoke, not with words, with memory. A wave surged through every Terran ship, bypassing encryption, touching every crew member with a flood of emotion, sorrow, rage, hope, forgotten names, lost children, dying warriors singing hymns in burning cities. Earth remembered everything. The signal carved itself into their minds. We did not die. We endured. Beneath fire, beneath oceans, beneath betrayal, we planted our rage in the rock. We gave it form. We gave it time. And now we give it to you. A tectonic shiver split the surface of the planet. Mountains cracked. Oceans boiled once more. From beneath the African plate, a leviathan rose, sleek, monolithic. A starship larger than anything ever imagined. Project Threnody, a living warship, fused with Earth's own crust, powered by geothermal fury and laced with the genetic memories of every fallen Terran generation. It had grown in silence, absorbing pain, calcifying memory into metal. It was angry. Idris could barely speak. That thing is fused with the planet. Etnum's voice responded, almost reverent. Project Threnody is the heart of Terra. Final directive class vessel, designed to awaken only upon Terran renewal. Is it armed? Rourke asked, blinking. Arm is insufficient. It is vengeance given form. Earth had built a final blade, not to strike first, but to strike last. The fleet wasted no time. The Terran ships began integration procedures, synchronizing their systems to Threnity's core lattice. Information surged, forgotten star maps, lost weapon protocols, artificial intelligences based on old Earth tacticians, all restored in seconds. And then the real miracle. A signal returned. Hundreds of them. Across the galaxy, more Terran relics responded to the pulse. Hidden carriers, sleeper satellites, biomechanical bunkers, things thought lost to time. Earth's heartbeat had become a drumbeat. Alara blinked through the tears. They're coming. All of them, every sleeper cell, every forgotten outpost. We called, and they heard. Callan whispered, we were never alone, just waiting. Idris nodded. But then, a tremor tore through the ship, and another. A low rumble in fold space. Rourke's fingers flew across controls. Fold spike detected. Large-scale entry. Right on top of us, the sky ripped open. The Obsidian Ascendancy emerged from the fold, along with the remains of the pursuing fleet. Somehow, they had followed, scarred, yes, but still vast, still merciless. But now, they were afraid, because they saw Earth, and what rose from it. The Empress herself came on the channel, her face pale and furious. You were supposed to be ashes, fossils, echoes. Idris stepped forward. We are, and echoes carry. You will not win. Even if you strike us down, the weight of the galaxy is against you. Idris's voice turned sharp. You mistake our goal. It was never conquest. It's remembrance. We don't need the galaxy to follow us. We just need them to see us. The Empress sneered. Then die loudly. The Ascendancy charged its doomsday lance. A weapon that had shattered moons and consumed fleets. Alara turned, panicked. Idris. They'll fire. He didn't blink. Let them. He connected to Threnity's core with his neural interface. This is Idris Harlan of Earth. Initiate final wake. And Earth answered. Threnity's core flared. A pulse of gravitational distortion so dense it silenced weapons in mid-charge. The doomsday lance fizzled out like a dying candle. The Empress shouted. What is that? Too late. Threnody sang. Not. With a weapon. With truth. A harmonic wave rippled across the stars. Carried by quantum memory threads seeded into galactic space centuries ago. It was a message. A scream. A reminder. A million species heard it. They felt Earth's pain, its sacrifice, its love, its wrath, and for the first time in recorded galactic history, the Empire's allies hesitated. Some refused to fire, others mutinied, because they saw what Earth truly was, not just a world, a wound that never healed. And they realized humans did not come to conquer, they came to end forgetting. Back aboard the Nexus, Idris fell to his knees, breathless. Rourke looked to him. What now? Idris's eyes burned like the heart of a dying star. Now, we finished this. The galaxy wasn't ready to face its sins, but we remember them all. The sky above Earth was a living storm, fire-laced clouds clashing with the void. As gravity wells buckled around Project Threnody, the Empress's fleet hovered at the edge of fold space, hesitant, silent, for the first time in 1,000 years. The Empire stared into a mirror it couldn't shatter, and it blinked out inside the Nexus. Idris Harlan gripped the edge of the holotable as new data streamed in. The harmonic pulse from Threnody had reached further than even Etnam projected. Entire sectors had gone dark, not from destruction, but defection. Imperial systems were switching off. Ships were vanishing from fleet formations, turning off their transponders, refusing orders. Former slaves, conscripts, and forgotten vassal races who had lived under the Empire's boot for generations. Now they had proof the humans survived, fought back, endured. Alara's voice trembled. We lit the fire, Idris, and now they're burning down the galaxy. He didn't smile. Couldn't. Not yet. They'll strike harder than ever now. The Empress won't accept a fracture. She'll try to cauterize it. Rourke spat on the floor. Let her try. We've got Earth back. We've got Threnody. We've got half the damn Ghost Fleet reactivating. But Maev signed urgently. Alara translated. We don't have time. Empire's deploying Blackfold triggers across 9 sectors. They're going to collapse stars. Everyone went still. Are you sure? Idris asked. Maev nodded once. Solemnly, Callan's voice cracked. They destroy entire systems. Billions of their own. Just to stop us. Idris looked into the burning display. It's not about stopping us. It's about making the galaxy fear resistance again. Alara whispered. They're making an example. Idris turned. Not this time. He looked toward the massive viewport, where Threnody loomed like the judgment of an angry god. We don't need to win every battle. We need to make the last one matter. The plan came together in silence. It wasn't just a counterattack. It was a confession. Threnody had something the Empire feared more than weapons, evidence. Inside its memory cores were the names of every raised colony, every vanished ship, every forbidden experiment. The Empire had wiped out entire bloodlines, cultures, even planetary archives. But humans had recorded it all and hidden it beneath their feet, uploaded. Idris said, broadcast to every open channel, pirate relays, trade hubs, subspace, drift nets. I want every sentient being to see what the Empire did, what they hid. Alara hesitated. They'll jam it. We'll burn it into the background radiation if we have to. The data pulse began. Across the galaxy, comm screens flickered, satellites spasmed. Trade networks choked. Then came the images. Entire cities turned to glass. Children used in genetic experiments, planets abandoned mid-terraforming, mass graves, floating in space. And behind them all, the oppressive seal. The Empire had ruled through fear. Now it would drown in memory. The reaction was immediate. Systems declared neutrality. Alliances broke. Some former vassals launched attacks on nearby Imperial outposts with scavenged weapons and nothing to lose. The galaxy fractured, not into chaos, but choice. Back aboard the Sable Dawn, Callan stood near the observation deck, watching Threnodity's spires glow brighter with each passing second. He whispered, so this is what it feels like to change the future. Idris joined him, eyes heavy. This is what it costs. Then the final warning came. The Obsidian Ascendancy is charging its core. Estimated time to starburst cannon. 3 minutes. Alara's knuckles went white. That's it. That's their endgame. The starburst cannon was a myth. A weapon not meant to fire at ships, but through stars. If it hit Earth, the planet wouldn't just die. The sun would collapse. Every ship in orbit would disintegrate. There was no time to run. No hope of withstanding it, unless Idris turned to the interface. Etnam, Threnody, full link. Initiate command merge. Give me control. A pause. Then command merge authorized. Tendrils of black light snaked across the Nexus command room. As Threnodi's systems fused into the bridge, Idris felt it enter his mind. Not invasive, not cruel, but deep, ancient, human. He stood at the center of it all. Terran history, blazing behind his eyes, every battle, every sacrifice, every unmarked grave, and he chose. Divert all power to gravitational inversion rays. Pull the cannon's core into itself. Alara gasped. You'll destabilize the ship. No. Idris said softly, I'll stabilize the story. The moment froze in silence. Then, Threnody surged. It moved not with engines, but with intention. Space folded around it. Earth's crust groaned as energy siphoned into the ship's belly. At the same instant, the Ascendancy's starburst cannon flared, bright enough to blind systems to sectors away. But before the beam could reach its charge, Threnody met it, redirected it, not with a shield, but with a gravitational snare woven from planetary, mass and war-forged alloy. The beam-curved dot folded dot turned back dot. It struck the Ascendancy head-on, and the Empire's greatest ship died in a flash of unmaking, not from human weapons, but from its own arrogance. The galaxy watched dot and something. Changed fear, collapsed dot silence, then it dot and across the stars. In that still moment after the storm, humanity rose. We didn't ask the stars for mercy. We made sure they'd never forget our name. The Obsidian Ascendancy was gone, not destroyed, erased. The Empire's supercarrier, their eternal blade of judgment, had folded in on itself in a whirlpool of light and gravity, consumed by the very power it tried to wield. There was no explosion, no glorious detonation, just silence and the echo of something final. On every world under Imperial rule, screens went dark, not from interference, from disbelief, because every broadcast carried the same closing image, the Terran emblem burning like a sun, with 5 defiant words in the common galactic tongue. We are still here. Remember us. Dot in the Nexus control chamber. Idris Harlan stood like stone, trembling as the neural interface slowly decoupled from his spine. His breath was shallow, hands scorched from feedback, blood seeped from his nose. But he was a bright dot alive. Human. Ela Arkin stepped forward, eyes wide. You survived the merge. Barely. Idris coughed, forcing a crooked smile. Threnody didn't want a pilot. It wanted a witness. Behind her, Callan shouted across the deck, Sir, long-range scans. The Empire's core fleet is scattering. Half the systems just dropped off the command grid. Rourke whooped, slamming a hand onto the console. They're running. After all their sermons and executions, they're running. Bev stood silently, her fingers flying in tight signs. Alara read them aloud. She says the signal from Earth is still spreading, faster than light, through memory paths. Even unrecorded civilizations are picking it up. Idris slowly sat down. We're not fighting them anymore. We're infecting them. Hope, Alara said softly. It's contagious, but not all were running. On the far edge of the solar system, where the cold of the void devoured light, something lingered, a fleet. No banners, no insignias, just obsidian hulls and slow, synchronized movement. The sanctified, the Empire's last elite executioners. Unlike the Ascendancy, they weren't built to win battles. They were built to end species. Their formation advanced with terrifying calm, preparing one last planetary bombardment. They weren't trying to beat Earth. They were trying to punish it. Idris saw the data scroll across his screen. A cold pit opened in his chest. They're going to glass the planet. One last strike, and the symbol. Leave nothing behind. Alara's eyes welled. Threnity's offline. It needs a full cycle to recharge. The fleet's drained. We can't shield Earth again, Callan said. Maeve shook her head. Silence fell. They had won. It wasn't enough. Idea or IS rose, slowly, painfully. No, it is enough. He turned toward the sable dawn, anchored beside Threnody like a loyal dog beside a sleeping titan. That ship still has fold-capable jump drives. She's old, but she'll move. Rourke looked up. What are you thinking? A short range. Warp. Right into their formation. Alara gasped. That's suicide. It's a distraction. Rourke shook his head. There's no way she'll survive it. She doesn't need to. Alara stepped forward. You're not doing this alone. You have to stay. He said quietly, all of you. This can't die with me. Callan's voice cracked. Sir, you wanted to change the future, didn't you? Idris looked around at each of them. This is what it takes. He walked toward the airlock, and for a brief moment, he wasn't Idris Harlan the fugitive or the last resistance commander. or the ghost of Earth. He was every name burned from history. He was humanity. The sable dawn launched like a javelin into the dark. Her hull groaned under pressure, shields patched with scrap and prayer. Idris sat at the helm, surrounded by old redouts, flickering lights, and a single photo wedged into the console. A woman, a child, laughing under an Earth sky long gone. He spoke into the wide band. "This is Idris Harlan, Terran-born, Earth-forged, son of a world you tried to bury." He locked coordinates. The enemy fleet grew closer. Black shapes against the stars. "You tried to erase us, but now the galaxy sees." He gripped the throttle. The ship hummed like it remembered. "I'm not asking for mercy. I'm giving you memory." He smiled. "Burn this into the bones of time." He fired the jump drive. The sable dawn tore a hole through space and slammed into the heart of the sanctified fleet. The resulting explosion wasn't massive. It wasn't grand dot, it was surgical. Because embedded in the dawn's core was an ancient weapon, one from the very first Terran wars. A gravity spike rigged to detonate in folded space dot. It ruptured the enemy formation, snapped their synchronized guidance systems, and cracked their fleet apart like ice under heat. Earth was untouched. Idris Harlan was gone, but his voice echoed in every ship. "We are still here. We do not kneel. We do not vanish. We do not forget." Back aboard the Nexus, the crew stood in silence. Elara wiped her eyes. "He bought us the future." Maev simply placed her hand against the glass. Rourke saluted. Callan whispered, "He didn't die. He became part of the story." And in the silence after, Earth systems flickered with new life. Threnody stirred once more. The war was over, but the memory had only begun. That day, the galaxy learned what it means to be human. The sky over Earth was no longer silent, where ash once drifted. Construction lights now blinked in rhythm with the stars. Scaffolds stretched over ruined cities, and once dead oceans pulsed with quiet, artificial tides. Reclamation drones weaved between charred buildings and cracked monuments. They weren't rebuilding what was lost. They were remembering it in orbit. The Nexus floated above the planet like a silent sentinel, surrounded by the Terran fleet, no longer broken survivors, but a sovereign force reborn. Threnody lay dormant again, its spires partially submerged back into the crust, sleeping, not gone. It had sung its last verse in the war, and now awaited peace. But peace was a strange word in a galaxy just waking from a long nightmare. On the main command deck, Elara Ken sat alone. The others were scattered, Callan helping rebuild orbiting colonies, Maev organizing silent vigil memorials, Rourke training new pilots from freed systems. But she stayed. She looked out over the Earth, still scarred, still beautiful, still theirs. She reached into her pocket and retrieved a small holocube. With a press, Idris's last message played once more. His voice was cracked, weary, and defiant, the sound of a man who knew he would not return. "We didn't fight for revenge. We fought for memory, for every voice they tried to silence, for every forgotten grave. We aren't just survivors. We are witnesses. Don't let the stars forget us again." The words had gone viral across millions of systems. Species were quoting him, not because he'd won a battle, but because he had meant every word. The Terran flame hadn't just reignited, it had spread. Months passed. A galactic tribunal was formed, not by the Empire, but by those it once ruled. Testimonies poured in from across the stars, delivered by species who had no reason to speak, except they finally could. The Empire fractured. Some remnants surrendered, others vanished into the void, refusing to answer for their crimes. But the fear was gone. The illusion of invincibility shattered, and at the center of the storm, Earth stood, not as a conqueror, but as a reminder, a living scar, a quiet force. The galaxy had laughed at them once, called them primitive, emotional, violent, loud. Now, they listened when a human spoke. Elara stepped out of the Nexus for the first time in weeks. The Earth's soil crunched beneath her boots. It was cracked, yes, but grass was pushing through. Real grass dotted around her. Survivors and descendants from human colonies were planting new roots. Tents and structures rose in harmony with Earth's rebirth. She walked to the edge of a half-reconstructed platform, once part of the old Terran Unity Spire, now used for remembrance gatherings. A small crowd had gathered. Callan stood near the front, holding a child. The boy had never seen Earth before the war, but he looked at it like it was the only planet that ever mattered. Elara stepped forward. The crowd quieted. She spoke, not with grandeur, but with steady calm. We weren't supposed to survive. We weren't supposed to remember, but we did. She looked up at the sky, where the broken moon still hung, cracked, but shining. They wanted our extinction to be a whisper. We made it a roar. Soft murmurs of agreement rolled through the crowd, and now it's our duty to make sure they remember, not through war, not through conquest, but through presence, through truth, through never forgetting who we are and what it costs to stay human in a galaxy that tried to erase us. A long pause, then Alara raised her hand, and for the first time in decades, unfurled a new flag. It wasn't just Earth's dot, it was a symbol of memory, a broken star, reforged in fire, cradled by orbiting rings of light. Not perfect, but unshakable. Later, she stood near the garden where Idrisa's name was etched into a stone wall alongside the others. Not heroes, not martyrs. Just names. People. Ela whispered to the wind, "We didn't forget you." And now, they never will. Years later, a ship docked at a trading outpost in the Cygnus expanse. The pilot, a young reptilian smuggler, looked up at the murals on the concourse walls. They weren't a king's dot or aliens or empire. They were of humans. Children in radiation suits hugging broken dogs. Pilots dragging each other from wreckage. A woman carrying her father's ashes across for sectors to reach her sky again. The smuggler tilted his head. Who were they? He asked the old station keeper. The man, a three-eyed Verdari veteran, answered softly. They were ghosts. Then they became fire. He gestured toward a hollow statue of a weathered warship. Sleek and battle-scarred, a plaque read, Sable Dawn. Final sacrifice, first flame, and beneath it, smaller words, now, the stars carry our name.